obscure world of parking. We use it every day, but have we really capitalized on the intricacies of our industry? In this podcast, the Parking Network will go behind the scenes and talk to industry professionals about all things parking, from the horizon of evolving technology and even stories of the old days. We hope to encourage and inspire operators and property managers alike to look at parking through a new lens.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, listeners. Thanks for joining us for today's interview. My name is Lee Thomas, and I am here on our Parking Industry podcast with Clyde Wilson and our very special guest, Kendra Petty. So, Kendra, hello, welcome.
Thank you, Lee. Great to be here, Clyde. Good to see you both.
See you.
Kendra, tell us where you are. What are you doing these days?
Oh gosh, big changes for me lately. I've known Clyde for decades. I've been in the parking industry for 31 years. Last month, 31 years. I started when I was very young, but I was always an operator. I was always on the operator side. I worked for Central Parking System for 14 and a half years. Worked for another smaller firm for about 3 years as their executive vice president, overseeing 3 of the 5 companies that they owned. And then I went to Last Parking for 14 years. And at the end of the year, I left Last Parking and I joined a company called Way, way.com, but we refer to it as Way. It is a car super app. So it's an auto super app that provides services and technology to drivers to help support the driver in the car. So it's a technology company. It's actually pretty cool to be able to say I'm in technology now rather than as an operator. But I miss some of the operator days for sure, but I'm still surrounded by many of my friends and in the industry, even though I'm now working in a lot of different verticals, from insurance to refinance and finance, EV charging, gas stations, car washes, mileage tracker, roadside assistance. There's so many services that Way provides through their app and through their website for supporting the car and driver. So it's pretty exciting. It's an exciting change.
That's a long background. She has done so many things. That's why I've just loved her to death. I don't know where the heck all of this came from. I just saw it the other day that you had moved away, and that's what a great move for you.
Thank you, Clyde. Yeah, I'm very excited for the future.
So you mentioned that you came from an operator background and then that you kind of missed that a little bit. So I would love to know more about that. What do you miss about your operating days? And then how is that experience benefiting you in your position with Way?
Yeah. So I'd say in terms of missing things, so I miss my employees, clients. It's a different world in the tech world. And so we're more behind the scenes, not forward facing with customers, clients, and employees as much. I mean, we have 500 plus employees, but it's just a different mix. It's a different group. There's so many people I knew and worked with for so long. So, I miss some of those folks, although I keep in touch with them. But what's interesting is now the parking operators are also my clients. So I've never had a parking operator that's my client.
As a client.
Yes.
Right.
So now the parking operators are my client. But so many other kinds of companies. So I'm getting, insurance companies and banks for financing and refinancing of vehicles because we offer that service as well. The car washes and the fueling stations. So we have a lot of different clients and vendors that we serve. But it all really, for us, it goes back to providing services and supporting the driver for their vehicle.
I think it's hard for all of us that have been a parking operator, especially in those really hard, heavy employee, heavy cash management 24 hours a day. It's hard for us to leave there and not miss it. We may be glad we're gone to some degree, depending on what we did, but you never get over it. It was a very special time.
Yeah, no, I agree. And as I interface with friends and reconnect with friends, it's refreshing to at least be able on some level, be able to still be involved in the industry and with the people I know. In terms of Lee answering your question about how parking operations and being an operator helps me in my new role as executive vice president for Way, I think one of the reasons why they considered me and brought me on was, well, first, there's a very strategic, aggressive growth plan that they have for the next couple of years. part of my specialty is really driving growth for companies, and I've done it for decades and love it. I love that growth. And so really focused on that. A lot of the verticals, we have 9 verticals of technology. They weren't really talking before. They were all sort of stood alone. Refinance stood alone. Insurance stood alone. Parking reservations stood alone. Fueling. And so now we're really focused on getting them all to talk to each other and really cross-marketing those services, as well as using our customers from our insurance division, our refinance, our banking division, all the other divisions, using them to cross-market for parking reservations, using our customers for parking reservations to cross-market for insurance and for refinance. So there's a lot of that. We've also got some other expansion, looking at some acquisitions, which I also love acquisitions, so that's a lot of fun. But I think one of the biggest things I bring to Way, they are a tech company. And so they view themselves as technology. I am viewing us as a service. I grew up in the industry. We're a service company, and a lot of parking companies are reinventing themselves as technology companies. But at the end of the day, they're still a service company. Parking companies exist because people need to park their cars. And so the technology helps improve the parker experience 100%. Helps improve the in and out and the payment process. It also helps the operator in terms of controlling that revenue. But at the end of the day, parking operators are still providing a service. You see, I still say we. It's hard to get away from that we, but
once an operator, always an operator, right?
But that they're still providing a service. So I'm taking that thought process and really trying to embed it at Way with our groups, our different divisions and groups, so that we're remembering that we're here to provide a service for the driver and for their vehicle. And so we're not just tech, we're also a service provider.
Internally, we just had that conversation probably a week ago of that we're a service company, and we keep forgetting our people that are coming in around us, and especially the tech companies that are coming in around us and coming at our industry now, forget the fact that there's only one reason we're here.
Right.
We're here to make sure that there's a parking space for somebody who goes to work every day or who goes to a meeting at their attorney's office. We're here to do that. The tech stuff is wonderful that's coming in because it provides us with this communications channels now that we didn't have before. We used to not know our customer. Now not only do we know them, they know us.
That's right.
But in the end, we're still a service company. I'm so glad you brought that up because it's such a core of what we are and who we are.
100%.
So you mentioned that Way is did you say a car super app?
It is a car super app.
So how is it different from other products like it? What makes it unique?
Sure. So honestly, there really is no other technology company or product like it. I think there is a company in Asia that does what Way does, but the founders of Way have just built an incredible machine. They started out with parking reservations 11 years ago in Silicon Valley, where they're based. And that was sort of their baseline, their platform. And that's where they grew, kind of like Spot Hero and ParkWiz and some of the other aggregators. So they started as an aggregator, but then pretty quickly realized after a few years, there's so much more opportunity, and we need to diversify, and we need to grow into other silos. So now we work with 60,000 gas stations. So if you go to our app or our website, download our app, you can choose which of our 9 verticals you want to use. Once you're in that vertical, let's say I want to find a gas station. You choose gas station, and then you either type in the city or the area or say, ping my location. It'll bring up all the gas stations in the area. We work with 60,000 gas stations. We've got discounts with most gas stations. And we've worked really hard to negotiate discounts in all of our platforms so that we can pass that on to our end user, our customer. But you can choose your gas station. You can say, this one is offering 25 cents off. I'm going to go to this gas station. And if you've uploaded a credit card with us on our app, then you go to that gas station, use that same credit card. We will ask you in the app, did you just fuel at, Shell station on Broadway Boulevard? Yes, that was me. You click the link and it will automatically give you your discount or your cash back. So we've done that with gas stations. We've done that with car washes, 20,000 car washes that we work with, 75,000 EV chargers. repair and maintenance, we're launching that arm this month, and we've negotiated with the Jiffy Lubes and all the different vendors of the world. We've got 20,000 repair and maintenance shops throughout the U.S. You can also go on our app, locate it, book it, pay for it, show up with your receipt or your QR code or whatever format that provider asks for, and you're done. But I think the best thing about it makes it easy to do anything you need with your car. But the best thing about it is you get discounts, you build points, way bucks, you get cash back. So it's really just an incredible ecosystem of providers for a vehicle. The other two, we have roadside assistance, mileage tracker, but the other two that I really love and love working with are the insurance division and the refi division. So we've got call centers and we've got licensed brokers, and we take you from beginning to end through the process for refinancing your car or getting insurance. We've negotiated discounts for each of those. So, when you go to a car dealership and you buy a car, usually you just sign and you finance through the car dealership. And those are higher interest rates, save you up to about $2,000 a year on your payments. And you also have the opportunity through the gap of us paying off your loan and starting your new loan, of skipping 1, 2, or 3 payments. So it really is impactful for people who are looking to save money. And then same with the insurance. We work with 150 different insurance companies. We have licensed brokers and call centers. We take you through the entire step from A to Z of obtaining new insurance. The only thing the insurance company does is underwrite the policy. The only thing the bank does for the refi is send us a check and we send it to pay off your loan. But we do everything in between. So it's pretty exciting, and you will save money. The insurance, we typically save about $800 to $900 a year in insurance, and with the refi, it's a considerable savings.
That's an amazing story. I had no idea of all the detail that you guys have behind the scenes. Amazing.
So what's a challenge? You mentioned just severe growth in the last 11 years, and then also diversifying to get out of the silos. What is a challenge that Way faced and overcame to be as successful as they are?
Well, I think, Clyde, you'll probably remember this. There were so many aggregators that came on board all at once. I mean,
all at the same time.
Parking
right?
Panda, there were so many. It was overwhelming. And so I think they got caught up in that mix. And then COVID happened and everybody struggled. Every kind of company. Way struggled. Everyone struggled. And that was really when they started pushing and launching other service groups to be sustainable, because Way wanted to separate themselves from just being a parking aggregator. We're so much more. And we can also put together custom programs. We call it Way Plus. So it's benefit packages for different employers. And so we'll sit on a Taco Bell or an Amazon's employee website, and we'll provide our Way Plus benefits in a special package for them. Amazon, all 300,000 of their drivers use our app for their roadside assistance. And so if they have an issue while they're delivering, they go through our app and they use our app to call for service. And then they also call for an Uber that will come get them. We just finished negotiating that, come get them from where they're at so they don't have to wait by their truck or vehicle. So there's so many different diversifications with Way that we can provide. I think it's a differentiator for clients, for operators, for you to go in and say to a client in a bid process, hey, listen, we've got this Way Plus benefit package that we've negotiated with Way, and we can offer it to all your monthly parkers at a, $2, $3, $4 a month. It's an incredible opportunity for operators.
The story just gets more interesting every minute.
You got to download our app and try it out. You'll find a lot of savings.
Shiloh will edit me out if I start trying to do it now. So wait.
Don't multitask, Clyde. Don't multitask.
I'm not. My hands are right here. I'm good.
Good. So from your perspective, Kendra, with the operator background and then this tech reality that you're in, where is parking going? Like, what is the future of Way, and what is the future of parking? What do you think?
That's a very good question. It's going tech. I mean, it's going to continue to grow. We're going to continue to see a lot of use of AI. And I think the parking operators that get on board with AI and utilizing AI, whether they're integrating it in their, for a long time, we spent a lot of time working on yield management and dynamic pricing and managing data through various systems. But integrating AI into that and really helping it prop up our predictive analysis is important for parking operators. On the tech side, tech companies have been using AI for quite some time, and we will continue to push it and grow with it and learn from it. But there's just so many opportunities in technology. But I still go back to every operator that I talked to over the last year is working on their own technology platform or partnering with the technology platform, also working on their own parks system, whether it's LPR, camera license plate recognition, and then a payment platform. But it really behooves operators to not spend a lot of time developing that and partner with companies like ourselves. Don't spend that. Way.com has spent hundreds of millions of dollars in developing their technology, and we are first and very fast to market and first to market with technology. So why would you reinvent the wheel? But I think parking operators need to embrace AI. They need to embrace technology, parking aggregators, but also companies like us who are so much more and offer so much more. But at the end of the day, they also need to remember, I'll go back to that, they need to remember that they're a service company and they're there to serve the parkers and help them find parking and make their experience easier.
If you go to the Harvard Business Review, you can find a long list over the years of stories of companies who tried to do something that was not their core business and failed, and it also damaged their core business. Being a tech company, this is kind of my view of this, and I hope the wrong people don't hear this. I hope everybody hears it. The parking companies have to have, and it's been good for them to have their kind of tech platform in the background to help with all the technology they have to do to get through the day we do providing service.
Right.
But that tech group in the background are not the same group that are out there developing new products, that are spending 24 hours a day with a large number of people trying to develop new products. And so when you start trying to take a parking company and manage something like this, I'm afraid we're going to end up on the bad side of that.
Yeah, I agree. Why reinvent the wheel when you've got,
Right.
We always say this as an operator. When I used to be an operator, we would always say to clients and potential clients who were running their own parking or thought about taking their parking in-house, that's what we do. That's
Right.
We're professionals at that. You
Right.
focus on your core business and let us focus on the parking. And so it's the same situation. And I would say for us, for Way, we spend tens and tens and tens and tens of millions of dollars a year on research and development so that we can continue to be first to market and very fast with our technology. And same tens and tens and tens of millions of dollars in marketing and outreach to find new drivers for our app. We get 1,000 downloads a day of our app, and we're constantly out there.
1,000 a day. That's amazing.
1,000 a day. We're constantly out there with SEO and SEM, and we've got marketing departments for all our different verticals that really focus on finding new drivers to refinance or for insurance or use our app for car washes or repair and maintenance and for parking. And so we're always spending a lot of time focused on finding new parkers for our parking operations. The parking operators, they've developed their parking reservation platform. They don't spend dime one in SEO, SEM finding new parkers to bring it in because it wouldn't pay for themselves to do that. The clients aren't going to pay for it. So, why spend that money? But we do. And so it just makes sense to partner with a company that is really invested in finding new drivers, finding new parkers, cross-marketing, offering all those services.
So this has come up so often in our past recordings, this reality that the parking industry is so fragmented. But it sounds like you specialize in collaboration and building connections and finding the person who has built the wheel instead of redoing it. So what advice do you have, or what desires do you have for the parking industry? What could we do to reduce our fragmented state and collaborate more efficiently?
Question. That's such an important question. And fragmented is a good word. Now that we're so focused on data and technology, we're kind of all over the board with all of our technology, our APIs, our integrations. There's no standardization. So then as an operator, when you go to take over a location and try to obtain that data through a parks vendor or from another operator, very fragmented, very dissected, very difficult to do. There's no streamlining. So I think standardization and certifications for the data security, the data management in the industry, and we need our leaderships to really get behind that and support that so that we can, they've done some things internationally to help with that. But, we always say Europe was much further ahead of us in technology. So I think we will get there, but we really need to optimize our efficiency. There's only, so much business. There's so many parkers and there's so much business, and we're all vying for it and all kind of fighting for it. But operations are going to change hands. That's part of the industry. It's unfortunate, but you're going to lose locations. You're going to pick up new locations. Wouldn't it be nice if there was some standardization and some certification so that we could easily integrate that data and that information and transition it one place to another, either from our clients or from our municipalities or whatever the case may be, parks vendors. Data security is going to continue to be really important to focus on as we grow. And how do we share that data? We have 9 million users at Way, and how do we share that information with our clients, but yet keep information secure? I think as we continue to try to go cashless, ticketless, gateless, we really have to figure out what is the best way to enforce that. And as we start to get pushback from communities on legal issues and trying to enforce it, back when I was young and in my 20s, and in Texas, we used boots, and we even used big oil barrels halfway filled with cement and chains to chain around the tires. Guess we didn't want to pay for boots, but you can't do that these days. So how do you enforce it? If you're looking to go gateless, or if you're surface lots that have no gate, what's the enforcement? Can we look at decriminalizing parking tickets and managing the adjudication of it? So what does that process look like? And the operators all have to band together and figure those out and lobby with the different cities that are really trying to push back on this enforcement process. I think those are the most important things. There is one other important thing, I think, in the industry in general, in parking and transportation is, and I will very briefly get on this soapbox, but there's got to be more women at the table. In the parking industry, there are not a lot of women at the table at all. There just aren't. And so that's really got to change. We women, we have great ideas. We're great leaders, and we work really well alongside all of the men leadership. So we want to see some parity and some more women at the table.
There were a lot of subjects that you talked about there I want to talk about, but I'll start at the end first. I certainly see that I've been around long enough, and you have too. We've certainly seen the change, and it's really happening, and it's in my mind, and I've thought about this as a guy who only had daughters, and now it seems like I almost only have granddaughters. I'm paying more attention to it than I ever did before. But, I can remember, and I thought about this just a couple of weeks ago. I can remember the first time at Central Parking in Nashville. So this would have been probably 1979-ish, 80-ish, when a young lady answered one of our ads for an area manager, and I was interviewing her. And that was in the day of cash, and I had area managers every now and then that had to pick up cash out of booths and vary them around, and they had to work the night shift sometimes. And I'm sitting there looking at her going, man, I would love to hire her. She is very smart. There is no way in hell I'm going to hire this young 24-year-old and put her on the streets at night with cash in her. I am not going to do it. And I didn't do it. And it bothered me that I didn't, but I thought, you've done the right thing here, because there was a good chance that it was not going to have a happy ending for her. And as we've moved away from those tough days and moved into a more civil industry, I'm seeing the change as it comes along. And it's not fast enough, but it's going to be fast enough. It's going to happen now. We're starting to become a civil industry and an industry that's a lot of opportunity for everybody. But it's funny how you say that, and that it bothered me so much to have this young lady that was certainly qualified, and I was scared to hire her.
Well, as someone who used to live in the Bronx during college as a starving student and take the subway into Manhattan every day, I don't think managing cash at night would have scared me, or it didn't, because even in the mid '90s when I started in parking, we were still cash heavy and a lot of
Oh, yeah.
shady characters that we had to
Yeah.
work with. Some
Well,
pretty
this
interesting
young lady
stories.
was from Nashville, Tennessee, and lived in one of the suburbs, and she didn't know about the Bronx.
Right.
So anyway, but no, that's it's a great subject, and it's certainly good to see us. And if you look at the parking network, I'm the only male here,
I love that.
so
I
I'm
love
trying
that.
to make ground for all the
That's
bad I
great.
did.
Well, I don't think you did bad. You were trying to be helpful and conscious, but
Right.
it's interesting. When I started in my very first job was in parking, was with Central Parking in LA at a building called Murdoch Plaza. And Murdoch Plaza had officed a number of different kinds of companies, but they also officed Interscope Films, Interscope Records, and Death Row
Right.
Records. So my regular interaction with Tupac and Snoop and Dre and Suge for a year and a half, and it was very hard. The manager that I replaced, his name was Mark, he quit because one of them threatened to kill him, and so he quit. And then one of them threatened to kill me while I was there, sort of on a regular basis. So it was a pretty intense and scary situation. But I managed through, and I'm still alive. I'm lucky to be alive, and for so many reasons. But I think some of us could stand the test of time.
I remember very well reading that section from your book, and I thought, I've known Kendra for a long time, and I know where she came from in the parking industry, but I never knew that. You didn't
Yeah.
tell me those stories.
Crazy, crazy, crazy stories, but
Mhm.
kind of funny now in hindsight. Looking back, I can laugh at them. But when I was living them, I was not laughing.
Was that the building that was at like 1600 Sunset?
No, it was Murdoch Plaza, so it was in Westwood.
Westwood. All right.
Yeah, it's a
Okay.
pretty funny part to the book. So if you haven't read the book, I would say, in the very least, read that part. There's some pretty cool industry stuff in there.
Yes, there is. The whole book was great. It was a very enlightening book, but it was the parking parts of it were very interesting. Some of them I knew, but parts of them like that one I didn't know.
So, Kendra, through this beautiful, amazing life you've led, who have been your mentors and what wisdom did you glean from?
That's a good question. So I really have never had a mentor. Mentorship wasn't such a big thing when I was younger. And my career path, I moved 13 times for my career. So I would get to a city and I'd be there for about a year and a half, and then it was time to move again. I've been where I've lived now for eight and a half years. So that's the longest I've been anywhere in my whole adult life. So it's been pretty incredible, and I've loved it, and I love where I'm living. Before that, I moved a lot. And so it was every year and a half, maybe every 2 years that I was moving. Almost every move, a promotion, a bigger title, more responsibility. But I would get to a city and I would just be getting to know people, and it was time to go again. And so I never really had a mentor. But what I did was I really focused on listening, seeking out the really smart people, the really successful, really good people in my company, and just watching them and listening and learning, going to GM's meetings and, regional meetings, and really intently listening and trying to learn, because those were opportunities for me to learn. So everywhere I could learn and emulate, I would. And, I did a lot of reading. But now I realize, so over the last, decade or so, I've realized how important mentorship is. So while I never had a mentor, I have now mentored young men and women and continue to. And I really value that, because I think I want to see them succeed. I want to help create opportunities for them, help them grow in their career. So mentorship, I've really come to embrace it. But unfortunately, I didn't have a mentor, so I just kind of hustled through on my own. I think a lot of people at Central did that, right? You were thrown into the fire and you had to learn or leave.
Yeah, my situation at Central was different because I worked in Nashville. So, I have Monroe 2 doors down, and Monroe's method of mentoring was yelling, of course, at everybody. The problem with me was I yelled back. And we finally decided, because there were people that told me, you're going to be fired. And I'd say, no, they finally figured out Monroe never had anybody stand up to him.
Mm-hmm.
So when I did, he liked it because he could tell the truth,
Right.
because he learned to tell, if I stood up and yelled back, then I knew the answer and I was not bending. if I said, well, I don't know, then he knew I wasn't sure. And so he could beat me up over it, and he knew I was coming back with an answer,
Right.
So, but it was just the personality thing. But I worked with Monroe, and, as hard as he was and all the horrible stories we have to tell about him, Monroe was a great mentor. And he taught me an awful lot about a lot of things, that the parking, but all the things around parking. So I can't imagine the career I've had if I had not have started with him, because I think I would have been a little too difficult for most people to handle.
That's great. He
Yeah.
probably loved that interaction. He probably loved that back and forth.
But yeah, no, one day and this was, I'd been there a month, and everybody said, you're fired. You're gone, buddy. And Monroe walked around my door that afternoon and waited for everybody to leave. He walked around my door, leaned his head in, and kind of did his normal to get my attention. And he said, if you'll stand up to me like that, then I know you'll stand up for this company against anybody.
I love that.
And I said, well, yes, sir, I do. I will. And he said, good, thanks a lot. And he walked away. So I went from, he's probably coming in the door to fire me, to, man, I may get a promotion out of this one.
That's awesome. Listen, I had so much respect for Monroe, and still do. He built a great machine and did great things, and I admired him very, very much. You'll probably remember he had a double knee replacement, both knees at the same time, and was up and walking within, I don't know, a week or two. It was wild. He was pretty incredible, I think.
Yeah, no, he was a very, 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 very smart guy, and he had a go. The funny thing, I found this, and there was a couple of things I've kept, and for some reason I kept this 1, 2 or 3 page document that was from Julie, and it was Julie writing to all the general managers a list of, these are all the locations we have in all the cities we're in, right? Well, now I was there in 79 to 83, and by that time, Monroe had already become president of the Urban Land Institute. So I was pretty sure that the world thought we were the biggest parking company in the country, right? I knew we weren't, but I thought they knew it. It was just recently that I was cleaning out files. I found this letter. We had 212 locations, and I had 60 of them.
Wow.
In Nashville.
Wow.
There were many companies out there that were far bigger than we were. But by that time, Monroe had already been president of the MPA and then president of the Urban Land Institute. And the world thought we were the toughest parking company out there.
Yeah.
We
really were. We were, because we dotted all our I's, we crossed all our T's. We had, very stringent procedures and processes.
Right.
At our height, after the All Right acquisition, I was with Centro when we were private. And then when we went public, and then when we went private again, I was still with them. And I was with them for the All Right acquisition, which was the biggest acquisition of its kind in the industry at the time. And so at our height, Central was, I want to say 42 to 4,400 locations, maybe 4,300.
So when was that, Kendra? What year?
So we bought All Right. Boy, I have some stories about that acquisition. We bought All Right when I was still in San Antonio, so it had to have been 1999.
Yeah, I was going to say 97 to 99, somewhere in there. So from
98, but yeah.
So from 19, really, that letter from Julie Carroll was about 82 or 83. So 82 to 99, 17 years, 212 locations to 4,000 locations.
Yeah, incredible.
I put anybody up against that. I don't know of anybody that could have done that.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
Great job. It was a really great job.
It was amazing. And hopefully there's so many of us out there now. Hopefully the parking industry has benefited from those of us who went through those days and are out there contributing to the industry.
A lot of people, former Central people for sure.
Yeah, a lot of them out there.
But there's some pretty big, some monstrous companies now that have grown organically or some through acquisitions. So there's a pretty big drive to be the biggest, but you got to remember to try to be the best while you're the biggest.
Well, I know that Waze will certainly benefit from having your background there. So when you were talking about not really coming up with a mentor because you moved around so much, you really did have a mentor, and you had the mentor was this industry that was left behind as you moved around and came in to see how other people operated, how the industry was evolving and changing. So you really had a very tremendous mentor. You just didn't have one person to point to.
Yeah, no, that's a
And
very
that's
good
good
point.
because
Very good
that's what's
point.
gotten you to where you are today. And of course, you. There are not many Kendra Pettys out there that have the drive and energy that you've had over the years to take all of that and move forward with it. So,
Thank
Way
you.
and all of your future customers and verticals you're dealing with will all benefit from all.
Thank you. Yes, I hope so. I hope to bring some good to Way.
I can count on it.
So you mentioned that you love to help companies grow, and that's come up a couple of times in this podcast. So Kendra, what is the rush there for you? What do you love about watching growth? What are some advice? Do you have advice for younger people in the industry who are interested in growth? How does a company know it's ready to grow? I would like to hear more of your thoughts on that.
Oh, that's a great question. So there's a lot of different ways you can grow. You can grow organically, acquisitions, mergers, that sort of thing. I love all of those things. When I was at LAS, I think when I started with LAS, we were about 500 locations. Now they say that there are about 4,000 locations when I left. So watching that growth and really being impactful and being a part of that growth
Right.
was just incredible. Same with Central. Every city I got to, every region I ran, the focus was growing, adding new services. I was with a smaller firm for about 3 years as their executive vice president. We made several acquisitions and then really focused on growing through the acquisitions. So that was very exciting. And then with LAS made acquisitions, but they also really focused on organic growth and really drove hard on organic growth. I started the airport division for them, pushed us into busing, which we weren't in before, grew the Las Vegas area. They had a couple of locations and couldn't grow it. Grew the Northwest, fourth of the country. They had one location and tried to grow it for many years and couldn't. So really working on those challenging opportunities for growth and creating new services was so exciting for me. I loved it. And so with Way, that's really what I'm looking to do as well. How can we grow in our different verticals and expand, but how can we provide more services as well? And looking at some acquisitions and doing some other things like that. So very exciting. For my advice for younger people who are looking to help contribute to their company's growth, you got to look for the opportunities, look for the areas that are deficient or that you can create new opportunities for growth, new services, new silos, new cities, new territories. We are looking at some international growth that way. There's those opportunities also, if you're saturated in the US, what's the potential opportunity for international growth? So really looking for those opportunities and diving in there to create opportunities for your company, but also opportunities for yourself.
So I'm just guessing, I don't know, but I'm guessing it requires a handful of courage and a handful of capability. What is the percentage breakdown on that? Like, how much courage do you need and how much capability do you need?
You need a lot of courage. When I started the airport division for LAS Parking, they didn't have any airports, and I had done a lot of airports in my past, but the situation with airports, if you're a company that wants to grow into airports in a number of different services, but particularly parking, transportation, ground transportation, the landside services, you have to have an airport to get an airport. You have to have a reference to get an airport, but you got to get an airport to win an airport or to have a reference. So it's the chicken and the egg, and it's very hard. And then even when you win your first airport, so we won our first airport, and you have to have these references typically for 3 to 5 years. So we were continuing to grow the Northwest, but also build the airport services group, the airport division back then. But we didn't have any references other than this one airport. And they're like, well, it's got to be 3 years or 5 years. So sort of waiting that out and trying to find the opportunities like we did for the first one. And I'll tell you, at the end of when we were in about our third year at that airport and not having any more airports, but have submitted just dozens of bids and still growing the Northwest fourth of the country, working 7 days a week, 10, 12, 14-hour days, I was getting to the point that I was done. I said, this airport thing is not working out. We haven't won any more airports. Couldn't use the one that we had as references. So it was getting very frustrating. And then like towards the end of the third year, we won another big airport and another really big airport. So we had three, and we had three substantial airports, not small regional little airports. They were three substantial airports. And then that's when we were able to really start focusing on our growth and sharing our stories. But our competitors were ruthless. They were ruthless. And if you're watching this, you know who you are. They would tell potential clients in airports, they only have one airport. They don't have any experience. They don't know what they're doing. Never mind, we had a team that had decades of airport experience. And could bring that. But they would hire their lobbyists to just trash us and tear us down. It was horrible. I mean, it was brutal. And we'd get calls from airports who were considering hiring us and saying, oh, well, we got this letter that says, you don't have any airport experience, or you had this issue or that issue. I'm like, okay, everybody had issues. So there were a few operators who were very threatened by our entree into the airport world that were ruthless and very unprofessional for a number of years. But, when I left LAS, I think we had about 40 airports. So, and they'll continue growing that and continue making headway. And it's an incredible area to be in. It's an incredible silo and service group to be in, the airports. So back to your answer, I went off on a tangent there, but I would say it's 50-50. You got to have the capability, but you got to keep having the courage, because I was really ready to give up. I had the courage to do it. And then it was after 3 years, I was just exhausted and nothing seemed to be happening. And I was really almost ready to give up. And then we won those other two. And that gave me another boost to continue on.
In spite of the ruthless competitors.
Those guys.
My goodness.
Yeah.
No wonder we're so fragmented.
I still see them at conferences, so I give them a hard time about it.
For you. Good grief. Well, Kendra, thank you. Clyde, what else do you want to say here?
Nothing except that I've certainly enjoyed this podcast. It's great to talk about Central Days. And, the great thing is this wonderful career that Kendra has and still has brings so much to a podcast like this, where we get to talk about the industry and the things that she's done to be so successful as she is. She's also been just one of those wonderful people I've gotten to know through my time in the parking business that I always appreciate.
As are you. I really appreciate the opportunity. I'm very, very grateful to be here. Always happy to come back and talk more about parking.
We couldn't wait to get you on, and we will certainly make sure there's an opportunity to bring you back as you move through your new career, and we can talk some more about Central Parking Days too.
Right. And where the future of parking is going, which
the
is
most important thing about this whole thing is with the future of where we're going and trying to maintain our service industry core while we bring in all of this new stuff that makes it so much better to manage and helps us be more professional.
Absolutely.
Interesting place. Interesting time.
Yeah, very exciting.
Yes, very exciting.
Kendra, did you want to add anything else?
No, I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Thank you very much, Lee, Clyde. Always great to see you. I'll definitely run into you at an airport, I'm sure, soon.
Sure.
I know. I hope I run into you at an airport. That would be really fun.
Absolutely.
We could do lunch.
I'd love it.
Yes.
Buy you lunch. Root down, right?
Well, to all of our listeners, thanks for joining us for today's episode. It was a great conversation about growth and technology and the future of parking. I hope you have enough courage to get through whatever your day faces, and we'll catch you on our next episode of the Our Parking Industry podcast.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks, everybody.
To quote one of the greatest business minds of our time, Charles Munger, he said, "The best thing a human can do is help another human being know more." Here on Our Parking Industry podcast, we want to provide knowledge and resources. If you heard something that sparked your curiosity in today's episode, please reach out on our socials at TPN Consulting. You can find us on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Don't forget to subscribe and follow. See you next time on Our Parking Industry.